Hi everyone, it's Miss Morgan again, and I'm here with section 3 of our book, The Trouble with Chickens. We are going to read chapters 6 through 11 today, and I know that sounds a little bit lengthy, but some of the chapters are really short, and I just want to make sure that we get through the whole entire book before the school year's over. So if you haven't caught up yet, go ahead. You can scroll back through talking points and find the links to all the videos, or I'll link the first two videos in the description so that way you don't have to do all that scrolling. But yeah, here we go with chapter 6 through 11 of The Trouble with Chickens. So chapter 6 is called Chicken Tears. Moosh paced back and forth. Dirt and Sugar followed behind her in the same oddly spaced line as before. I stood in front of Moosh and brought her little chicken parade to a halt. Sometimes your gut can tell you more than your nose. This was one of those times. I could see from the look in her eyes that Moosh was thinking about trying to get past me. I bared my teeth and moved in closer. That changed her mind. I've never backed down from a staring contest in my life, but her eyes were so tiny and close set, it was making me cross-eyed. I was breathing in what she was breathing out. Her left foot was bouncing up and down like she was standing on a hot plate. She looked down at the note, then she looked down at Dirt and Sugar. When she finally looked up at me, her eyes were filled with tears. I'm no stranger to tears. The sad truth about search and rescue work is that there isn't always a rescue, so I'd seen plenty of tears before. I hope I never see them again. Moosh's tears finally got the best of her. Her beak began to quiver. The note fell to the floor. I had what I needed. I didn't want to hold her precious note anyway. I wanted to sniff it. Sure enough, it reeked of one thing. The same chicken scent I had been following before the storm. The trail was right under my nose. All right, so now we have chapter 7, Inside Job. Behoove, Rendezvous, Twilight. I've been lowered from a helicopter, strapped to a snowmobile, and flown first class to France to find a backcountry skier lost in the Alps. Not once did anyone find it necessary to use the word behoove. My bet was that a chicken the size of a golf ball wouldn't find it necessary either. That note might have been covered in Poppy and Sweetie's scents, but I was sure it wasn't covered in their words. Behoove, rendezvous, twilight. They were inside words. Words you only learn inside, where there are things like comfortable chairs and fresh lemonade. Out here, with the chickens and the dogs, we don't behoove. I don't have a problem with big words, but there's a time and a place for them. A muddy note in a chicken coop didn't seem like the right place. Outside, the rain had gone from a storm to a standstill. I had been so busy thinking about that note that I hadn't noticed the quiet. There wasn't enough breeze to ruffle a feather. Moosh was staring at the note. I watched her eyes scan the page over and over. "What does it mean?" asked Moosh. I wasn't sure who she was asking. Sugar spoke before I could. "It means we need to be in the chicken coop by 6:30. Sugar's head wasn't filled with feathers, that's for sure. I was going to have to keep my eye on her. Right after my nap. Wake me up at 6:25. Alright, so now we have chapter 8, Detour. Our shadows were long and thin as we headed over to the chicken coop for our rendezvous. Dirt and Sugar were covered in mud, wet grass, and napping in my empty food bowl. It looked like an Easter basket gone horribly wrong. It's time, Moose clucked. "We have to get to the chicken coop. Come on, come on." "Go ahead, Moosh. I'm going to keep an eye out from here." I had a hunch that I should stay outside the coop. I had a hunch once about a roast beef sandwich I found in an alley in Detroit. It didn't smell quite right, but I was hungry. I ignored the hunch and ate the sandwich. I woke up 3 days later with an IV needle jammed into my front paw courtesy of the Detroit Animal Clinic. That was one bad sandwich. The same little voice I had ignored in Detroit was now telling me to stay outside. I stayed outside. Moosh was not completely convinced that I wasn't going to ditch her as soon as her back was turned. I wasn't completely convinced myself. "Go on, Moosh," I repeated. Dirt gave her mom a little tug and led her into the coop. Sugar stuck around just long enough to throw me a dirty look. I threw it back. I was walking away to find decent cover when the scent hit me square in the face. I may have actually tripped over it. It was the same scent that was all over the note. The rain hadn't washed away the chicken scent after all. But it didn't lead to the chicken coop. It led to the house. Moose shot her head out of the coop. It's 6:33. Where are they? Where are they? Where are they? I had put my paw over her face to can the clucking. Once again, I noted her sharp beak. Moosh, we got a new development here. I held her beak close with my paw and explained the scent trail leading right up to the house. Mmm, she mumbled. I let go of her beak. It can't be, she said again. Noses don't lie, I answered. But what about the note? She asked. Decoy, I grumbled. But it doesn't make any sense. Before she could finish her sentence, a dark shadow appeared in the window. The shades were drawn, but you could clearly make out the silhouette. There was no mistaking that silhouette. Vince the Funnel. So who do you all think Vince the Funnel is? We're about to find out. Chapter 9, Vince the Funnel. Vince was 37 pounds of shiny brown mutt. He had a long, skinny build, beady eyes, and a giant white funnel around his neck. He looked like a cross between a dachshund and a lamp. We had met the very first day I'd arrived here at Barb's country house. I nodded at him that morning almost 2 weeks earlier. It was a gesture of goodwill. He didn't nod back. Fine by me. I didn't need any new friends. I could, however, have used a lamp. Up to now, I had never exchanged a word with Vince the Funnel. He spent his time inside, I spent my time outside. I preferred to keep things that way. But a deal is a deal, even if you make it with a crazy chicken. What little I did know about Vince, I knew from a distance and from the grapevine. I knew that a dog walker came by every day to take him outside, and I'd heard he was a little off his rocker. While I was taking an inventory of what I knew about Vince, Moosh kept herself busy by losing her mind. Vince the Funnel has my chicks, she screamed Moosh. She was running around like a chicken without a head. Dirt and Sugar were frozen in place, their fuzzy little chicken brains on overdrive. Inside dog, inside words. It was all beginning to make sense. Before I could think any further, my stomach rumbled. I was starving. I should have asked for that cheeseburger up front. There's Vince the Funnel looking from inside. Okay, so here's chapter 10, Funnel Vision. Oh, how Barb loves losers, I thought, watching JJ the hero dog march around the yard with Chicken Mom on his tail and his face to the ground. Only an arrogant search and rescue dog could undergo years of training but not recognize a simple trap when it's right under his nose. Makes me laugh out loud. But Hero Dog isn't like Barb's usual rejects. The orphan baby birds, the mangy stray cats. I'll have to figure out his weak spot when I have him up close and personal. Welcome to my school, Hero Dog, I muttered. No medals and no parades here, pretty boy. Just my yard, my house, and my rules. Soon you'll meet one brilliant alpha dog who doesn't like company. I chuckled to myself and I leaped off the table in front of the window. On the way down, the funnel caught the edge of the lamp and it crashed to the floor. The lamp shattered, a bulb burst. 2 tiny chickens squawked. I couldn't have planned it better myself. So that was Vince the Funnel introducing himself as the bad guy, I would think. Okay, so here's our last chapter. Chapter 11, Why Me? Vince's shadow had disappeared, and the commotion made it clear that it no longer behooved us to rendezvous. I didn't have to turn around to tell what was going on behind me. Sugar was coming at me as fast as those freaky little chickadee legs would take her. She hadn't just inherited her mother's eyes. She'd inherited her mother's crazy. You're going in, right? Asked Sugar. I rolled my eyes. I'm not going anywhere until I have more information. You have all the information you need. Poppy and Sweetie are in the house. You said so yourself. No, I said the trail leads to the house. Are you listening to me? Do you even have ears? For the first time that day, I bothered to check to make sure chickens had ears. They do. Sugar looked over at the house. The back steps were just a few yards away. To the right was an old bird bath. To the left was a droopy tomato plant. Barb must have saved all the pretty for the front of the house. I'm going in, Sugar chirped. She was off in a flash, with her eyes locked on the doggy door. And that second I was sure of only one thing. If she went in, she wasn't coming out. I grabbed her by the scruff of the neck and looked for some place safe to stash her for a few minutes. I tossed her up onto the bird bath. Sit down and keep quiet. She kicked a pebble at me. I thought about the small town in the Midwest that had held a parade in my honor after I pulled 3 tornado victims out from under a mountain of debris. If you had told me then that I'd someday be dodging pebbles tossed by a baby chicken, I would have bitten you. Hard. Like I said, I didn't belong here. I was as out of place in the country as the guy I once pulled out of a snowy cave in his pajamas. Life is strange, mister. All right, that's the end of our readings for the day. So now we are going to do our review questions. So they start at chapter 8. How did J.J. Tully say he had ended up with an IV in his paw? So if you remember, I know it was a little while ago from chapter 8, he said this happened when he had a hunch. So what do you think? He ignored a hunch he had, and he ate a bad-smelling roast beef sandwich he found in the alley. So then the Animal Hospital of Detroit had to come find him and put an IV in his arm so he can get medicine and fluids and get all better. Okay, so chapter 9, who was Vince the Funnel? Who did we meet in this section? And he wasn't the best of characters, I'll say. Vince the Funnel was a 37-pound shiny brown mutt, and he wore a funnel around his neck. So Vince is the one who stole the chicks. What was the difference between Vince and JJ? So remember JJ was going back and forth saying why things were so different the way Vince did them than they were that JJ did them? So why is that? What's the difference? Vince was an inside dog and JJ was an outside dog. So Vince spent a majority of his life inside a house with humans. He probably even sleeps on his owner's bed or in his owner's room like my dog does. Whereas JJ is an outside dog. So he spends most of his life outside with the stray cats, with the chickens, and he doesn't really spend as much time with humans. Unless, they're feeding him and things like that. So he is more in tune to things outside, whereas Vince is more in tune to things inside. So who had the chicks? I'm pretty sure I gave this away a couple minutes ago. But who took the chicks? Vince had them inside the house. So Vince the Funnel stole the chicks. Why? We don't know yet. Okay, why wouldn't JJ let Sugar go into the house? So this was from chapter 11. It's a little more recent than the other one. So what do you think? Oops. He was sure that if she went in, she wouldn't come out. So JJ knew that if Sugar went into the house to go find her 2 sisters, that Vince was just going to steal her too, and then they would have 3 missing chicks on their hands instead of 2. All right, so that's the end of our reading for today. Like I said, I'll post the other 2 that we've done in the past few weeks in the description of this video, so that way you don't have to go looking back for them if you need to catch up or, you want to read them again or anything like that. But yeah, I'll see you next week and we'll continue this story. Bye.